Middle-earth Shadow of War's most despised feature continues to be its implementation of microtransactions and loot boxes. Alongside providing players with gear, orc followers, and XP boosts in the game's single-player campaign, making it entirely possible that progression has been balanced around these loot boxes, it also grants players a distinct advantage in the game's ranked social conquest online multiplayer mode, which sees players invading each other's custom fortified fortresses. With these loot boxes, players can quickly become powerful to make invasions easier, as well as easily replenish any fallen orc followers to grow their army and refortify their fortresses. And the worst part about all this is that because it's loot boxes, which grant a randomized selection of rewards, those who do pay real money may not even get what they want. It's essentially gambling for rewards rather than paying for a specific product. So all in all, with the implementation of loot boxes, the game as a whole gets thrown out of balance, consumers get ripped off, and Warner Brothers gets to fill their already heavy pockets. Now, during an interview with website Eurogamer at EGX 2017, when asked about the backlash against loot boxes, Shadow of War's design director Bob Roberts tried to make some justifications and reassurances, failing miserably along the way. Eurogamer's first question asked, "What can you say to reassure the fans who will never buy a loot box that Shadow of War has still been balanced with them in mind?" Bob's response was, "We are working our tails off to make this massive game, and as a designer, the design director, I focus on balancing it. We do a ton of playtesting and make sure it is tuned to a setting where people can enjoy it. We kept all of the loot boxes and the economy of real-world money turned off in playtesting, so we know we're balancing around an experience which is rewarding without any of that stuff." Yeah, we'll see about that. After recent cases like NBA 2K18, which skewed its progression system to be a painstaking grind unless players took advantage of microtransactions, I'd be hard-pressed to take developers' word when they make empty reassurances like these. But even if it is as he says, and they kept loot boxes and the economy of real-world money turned off while developing the game, this would mean that they haven't tested the effects that loot boxes and microtransactions may have on the overall experience. It sounds to me as though this feature is just being blindly thrown in there without much consideration for the impact they could have on Shadow of War's balance and progression. That's actually quite concerning. I'm not sure that's something to be proud of, Bob. Moving on, Bob was told, "Because some people think you guys have ulterior motives, that you're waiting for a tough bit to pop up, an on-screen prompt saying, 'Hey, have you seen what we're selling?'" Bob responded with, "No, absolutely not. 100% not." It is important to clarify this, as there were a couple of misconceptions. First, the concern about balancing. Hopefully when it is out there and people are able to talk about their experiences, then the balancing question will be answered, hopefully by people you trust to play through it and see that. The other big misconception was whether the game had to be online too, and it's important for people to understand that no, it's not required to be online to play the game, and it's a massive game where you can enjoy the full experience without putting any extra money in. Here's the thing though, the game does come with an online multiplayer component, which does require an online connection. It's part of the feature set of Shadow of War's package. On that front, microtransactions will give certain players the upper hand over others. Those who do purchase loot boxes will unquestionably progress much faster and have better gear, higher level, and orc followers galore compared to those who don't. So while it's true that it is not mandated for the game to be online, it still comes with this sizable online feature that is still being crippled by microtransactions, which is something that Bob doesn't address. The next question asks, why put it in at all? As a design director, your life is spent ensuring players don't get bottlenecked in certain places, that people never run out of resources when they really need them. Why complicate that? Bob responded with, yeah, in the game you earn resources at a regular pace, and the systems are tuned to that so you don't need another option. At the same time, it's there as a player choice. It's there from my perspective for people who are protective of their spare time and scared when a massive game comes along that they're not getting to see the full experience. It's the same design philosophy as us adding in difficulty modes. So we now have easy mode, and we have added hard mode at the other end of the spectrum. Frankly, the Nemesis system comes to life when you are dying loads, so you could see easy mode as a system which makes the game less enjoyable if you're the type of player who really should have put it on hard. It's putting more control in people's hands, saying you know how to play best, you make that choice. The ideal for people who set it to easy is if they are just finding things too punishing, not because they don't want to die. We'd rather you die regularly to get the full experience of the Nemesis system. So this is where Bob's logic really starts to fall apart. He's saying that this is the equivalent of offering players the choice between easy, normal, and hard mode, but difficulty modes don't involve additional financial commitments and considerations. You just make the choice without having to worry about the monetary worth of those choices. That's not the case with loot boxes. They're not just giving players options, they are charging for them. At that point, it's not just about do I want to take a shortcut, it's also about is it worth my hard-earned money. And once you factor in how loot boxes are randomized rewards, can you really call that choosing? It's not even about paying for something you pick out and want, it's about paying for something you hope to get, which is kind of how gambling works. You make an investment and hope that you hit the jackpot. Bob also compares loot boxes to cheat codes by stating that they are there for people who are protective of their spare time and scared when a massive game comes along that they're not getting to see the full experience. Guess what, Bob? There was a time when cheat codes used to be free, when there were actually just choices players could make with no strings attached. There was a time when you could just type in and enter "show me the money" to get a bunch of in-game resources, Operation CWAL to progress faster, or Power Overwhelming to be invincible. Any StarCraft players here? Those were the good old days when players were actually given a choice to take a shortcut, not charged for them. So if Shadow of War were truly about giving players choices like difficulty modes, why can't they just give us free cheat codes instead of paid loot boxes? The answer is simple. Bob is full of shit. It's not about player choice, it's about player exploitation. It's about taking advantage of human impatience, frustration, and ambition to make extra cash on the side. Ambition is an especially big part of Shadow of War due to the inclusion of a ranked competitive multiplayer mode, which are affected by loot boxes. So alongside charging to cheat in single player, something that used to be free, they are also charging to get an edge in multiplayer, disrupting what could have otherwise been a level playing field. So yeah, long story short, Bob's justifications are utter bullshit. They're not giving players choices, they are charging and exploiting players to gamble for cheat codes. It's that simple. Moving on, Eurogamer's next question asked, speaking generally, do you think it's fair for full-price AAA games to feature loot boxes like that? I've chosen to pay for them in the past in other games on the odd occasion, and I'm still not sure how I feel about it. Bob responded with, you put your $60 in for a big game like ours up front, and our focus is that its initial purchase price is more than worth it. You want people to be pleasantly surprised by how much stuff is in it. Wow, Bob, they must call you Neo back in the office because you sure know how to dodge questions at bullet speed. Eurogamer responded with, but I understand the argument that the fact they exist at all is a distraction. Bob reciprocated with, yeah, it's such a charged topic. It's frankly complicated. You see the debate play out online in forum threads where people argue with each other about it. There's so much complexity to it, especially when you see articles coming out about our game or another game, and we have announced a load of new content and we're trying to find out what people think about those things, but the conversation keeps coming back to that, loot boxes. It's interesting to see the discussion, but we want to get people's opinions on more than just that. Except it's not a complicated topic, Bob. You're asking us to pay for cheats and shortcuts. If you want to give players choice, then stop charging for gameplay features that once used to be free and inherent at the expense of game progression, game balance, and fair competition. And this conversation might not be important for you, but it's one that people will keep having because it is games that they're paying for that they're not getting satisfaction out of due to the adverse effects that microtransactions and loot boxes can have. And look, I know that a lot of this stuff is out of Bob's hands. It was publisher Warner Brothers who most likely mandated microtransactions, not developer Monolith. So on some level, I can sympathize with Bob because he's kind of wedged in a bit of an awkward situation where he has to sell this game and can't talk shit about his own publisher, meaning that he has to do his best to reassure people that microtransactions won't have any effect on gameplay. But I can't overlook the fact that these responses make no sense, they're thoroughly dishonest, and smell like utter bullshit, so I have to call them out as such. Finally, when told by Eurogamer, it dominates the conversation, especially before people had a good chance to see how it works themselves. Bob responded with, yeah, obviously we have tuned our game so it works without those things, and that including them does not distract from the rest of it. And that's it. There you go, folks. A bunch of non-answers, insubstantial justifications, and lame excuses for a very clear-cut issue. I think I've said all there is to say about the matter, so with that, I would like to end this news update and discussion video. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy my content, consider supporting me on Patreon, to chat with me on Discord, to get your name in my videos, to play games with me, and much more. All contributions will go towards remaining 100% independent. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out!